السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه، والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد, inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue on where we left off in our series Fiqh of Tahara. Last week we finished covering pretty much the chapter of tayammum, or the dry ritual purity. And inshallah ta'ala we'll move on next to what is more commonly performed, which is al-wudu, or ablution, or the ritual purification. And inshallah we will go through the next section here. We'll kind of change gears a little bit, and maybe we won't go to the same depth of every mas'ala, but inshallah we'll go into it and take the benefit that's needed and go to it in detail, but perhaps just a little bit faster gear, inshallah. So we'll begin inshallah ta'ala by mentioning that just like other ibadat, just like we talk about in salah, at-tahara or wudu has different tiers or categories of parts or sections to it. One of them being the arkan, or the wajibat, or the sunan. And we're going to talk about those as well, inshallah. So we'll begin by saying, just like every other ibadah, al-wudu requires what condition to be done? What's the first condition to performing it? Like any other ibadah now. Niyyah, jazakallahu khairan. Somebody has to have the niyyah in order to perform the wudu, just like any other ibadah. And where does that come into play in a very practical sense? Many times people, they take a shower, and then they come out, they take a shower intending to clean themselves or to cool down or something, and then they come out of the shower, and then, it's time for salah. Okay, I just made wudu because I was in the shower. Even though they never intended wudu, but because they were in the shower, they say, no, I have wudu now because I just washed my body. And that entails all the organs that is washed during the wudu, and this is incorrect. Or if somebody was in a swimming pool, they say, I can make salah now because I was just submerged into water. That's incorrect. Unless the person actually, or he makes the niyyah for al-wudu, and actually performs the washing the a'dha, or the organs that need to be washed. But this is important. Just like any other ibadah, intention is required. And intention, just as a recap, where is the place for intention? Where is intention formed? Where? In your heart. Intention is formed in your heart. That being said, it is the firm resolve within your heart to perform something, pretty much to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Okay? And we're doing this obviously in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And obviously, a supporting narration for that is the famous hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ إلى آخر الحديث, that verily the deeds are upon the intentions. The next step is the tasmiyah, which is saying Bismillah. Saying Bismillah at the beginning or start of the wudu. There's various opinions on this matter. We spoke about it a little in the last class, I believe. But from the opinions, there is an opinion that says that it is wajib to say Bismillah at the start of the wudu, meaning that if somebody does not say, their tahara is batil, their wudu is batil, it's invalid. Another opinion is that it's mustahab, and a third opinion is that you do not say it. So, like we mentioned prior in the other halaqah, there is nothing authentic from our beloved sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that he said Bismillah in the start of his wudu. Okay, there is no authentic hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that he said Bismillah in the start of his wudu. And actually, on the contrary, there is, like we said last time, the most detailed hadith about al-wudu is narrated by Uthman radiallahu anhu, or the hadith of Uthman radiallahu anhu. And in the hadith, Uthman radiallahu anhu is performing wudu, and he's telling his servant, or or he's saying in the hadith that this is how Rasulullah performed wudu sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And he goes into extreme depth and detail in what he is doing. And considering that, he did not say Bismillah. So the ulama say that had Rasulullah said Bismillah at the start of his wudu, then Uthman would have definitely transmitted that to us in that narration, and he did not. And it is not So a note here also is that the opinion of it being a wajib to say Bismillah isn't narrated, or it isn't an opinion held by any of the Salaf, yani from the Sahaba, the Tabi'een, or the Tabi'een. Just for a side point. However, like we mentioned before once again, is that the tasmiyah or saying Bismillah prior to the wudu, according to the scholars, is mustahab. It's recommended because of general evidences of beginning things with the name of Allah by saying Bismillah while performing things. Okay, so due to general evidence, ulama say it's mustahab, even though there's no specific narration to legislate this in wudu in specific. The next mas'ala here is using siwak at the time of wudu. Okay, siwak is obviously the piece of the tree that is used to clean the teeth. And there is no khilaf bayn al-ulama that it is a sunnah, a highly recommended sunnah to use the siwak in the wudu or at the time of wudu. Okay, there is a khilaf, however, on when exactly it's to be used. So we have a hadith عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لولا أن أشق على أمتي لأمرتهم بالسواك عند كل وضوء. So Abu Hurairah, he says رضي الله عنه that the Prophet said sallallahu alayhi wasallam that if it not were to have been a hardship upon my ummah, or if it wasn't that I don't want to make a hardship upon my ummah, I would have obligated upon them to use the siwak with every wudu when making wudu. Okay? And also another hadith from Hudayfa أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان إذا قام من الليل يشوس فاه بالسواك صلى الله عليه وسلم. That when he got up for the night prayer, he used to clean his mouth with the siwak. And what is apparent from the narrations is that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or from the ahadith or the narrations that we have, what's apparent is that the use of the siwak or cleaning one's teeth is done prior to making the wudu or prior to beginning the wudu, and not actually during the steps of wudu. Okay, wallahu a'lam. The next mas'ala here that the ulama talk about is the ruling on facing the qibla while making wudu. Is this something that is legislated, that you have to face the qibla while making wudu? If it is, we definitely don't have it in our masjid here because the direction of no, it is not. So there is nothing authentic or confirmed from the sunnah that one is to face the qibla while making wudu. Okay? Next mas'ala here is that washing each part of the body. Okay? So we're going to take some general masail, then we'll go into depth on, or we'll go step by step on how the wudu is performed. But washing each part of the body, what's the minimum requirement? What's the wajib that's needed? How much times do the parts have to be washed? The minimum, one time. One time is the minimum. So if you did one time, you did the wajib. You did what was upon you for it to be valid. But like the akh mentioned, he said 3 times, that is what is the maximum, and that is what is the best. To wash 3 times. And we do have narrations that we do have authentic narrations about washing the limbs or the parts of the wudu 1 time, 2 times, and 3 times. Okay, so some ulama, they say even what's good for the abd to do, so it doesn't become like mechanical ibadah, is to sometimes wash 2 times, sometimes wash 3 times, sometimes wash 1 time. And that way the person stays in touch with the actual ibadah they're doing. يعني they بيستحضروا النية of when they're making the ibadah, the wudu. It's not just like something they just got used to and it's a habit. No, they actually are contemplating on the purification that they are doing for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the hadith is from Umran radiallahu anhu, which is Mawla Uthman. He is the slave or the servant of Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu. أنه رأى عثمان. He's seen Uthman, and Uthman, he asked for water to be drank for him so he can perform wudu. And then he poured the water from it over his hands and washed them 3 times. Then put his right hand into the container to capture some water to rinse his mouth and his nose by putting water in his mouth, rinsing it, spitting out, and then putting water into his nose and then blowing it out. Then he washed his face 3 times and the forearms up to the elbows 3 times, then passed wet hands over his head, and then he washed each foot 3 times. And like I mentioned before, it is authentic that we have narrations that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that he washed the body parts twice. Okay? Like which has been mentioned from the hadith of Abdullah bin Zayd radiallahu anhu. That he said عن عبد الله بن زيد رضي الله عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم توضأ مرتين. That he used to, sometimes when performing wudu, wash the body parts twice. Now, a question here. Is it permissible, let's say I begin my wudu, and then I wash my face 2 times. Is it permissible then to wash the next limb, like my arm, 1 time or 3 times? Or does it have to be uniform? If you're washing twice, every part has to be twice. Or if you're washing once, every part has to be once. Or if you're washing 3 times, every part has to be 3 times. What is it? What do you guys think? Does it have to be uniform, or can you make it interchangeable? You can wash the face once, the arms 3 times, the feet twice. What is the correct opinion? What do you think? It has to be uniform? What do you think? Does not? The correct opinion is that it does not have to be uniform. There's no problem at all whatsoever in washing the different body parts a different number of times. There's nothing wrong with that at all whatsoever. So you can wash your face 3 times, your arms twice, and your feet once. No issues. And it's been actually confirmed from the Prophet ﷺ in another narration that he did that. Yani one of the Yahya radiallahu anhu al-Mazani, he asked Abdullah bin Zayd who is the grandfather of Amr ibn Yahya, he said, can you show me how Allah's Messenger used to make wudu? And then Abdullah bin Zayd replied in the affirmative. Then he asked for water, and then he began to show him. And in there he rinsed his mouth, or he washed his hands twice, then he rinsed his mouth 3 times, and rinsed his nose 3 times, and then he washed his face 3 times, and then he washed his arms twice, and then passed wet hands over his head from the front to the back, and then vice versa, and then he washed his feet up to the ankles. So it's mentioned even in that narration that is authentic, it's in Bukhari, that body parts were washed a different number of times. The next part is washing the hands before making wudu, or at the very start of the wudu. So it is legislated from the sunnah, and it is a sunnah, that one washes their hands between 1 to 3 times. The sunnah is obviously 3 times in the start of the wudu. And this washing, by the way, is a different hukum than the washing of the hands that's done after, from the fingertips to the elbows, as we will come to mention inshallah. Another sunnah act is beginning with the right limbs before the left. Okay? So when washing the hands, washing the right before the left, and with the arms same thing, and with the feet the same thing. And it is not obligatory though to do so according to ijma' al-ulama. There's a consensus that, and it's mentioned by Ibn Mundar, Ibn Qudama, rahimahullah, there's a consensus that it is not obligatory that the right has to be washed before the left. So we're going to come to see that the wudu, obviously from the conditions of it, is that the steps have to be done in order, without a doubt. You cannot begin your wudu by washing your feet and do it backwards, okay? It has to be done in order. And when it comes to washing the hands, okay, the hands have to be done in the correct sequence in terms of the rest of the wudu, but because you wash both of your hands, they're two of the same limb, it can be the right before the left, left before the right, but the sunnah is to wash the right before the left. And the same thing applies to when you're obviously washing the arms and when you're washing the feet as well. And we have a hadith to support this from Aisha radiallahu anha. قالت كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يعجبه التيمم في تناوله وترجله وطهوره وفي شأن كله. That he sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to like to start with the right before the left and wearing his shoes, combing his hair, and cleaning and washing himself, and doing anything else. So, like I just mentioned, it leads me to the next point, is performing wudu in the order mentioned in the Quran. So we have an ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, which gives us the arkan of wudu. Okay, so this ayah, just remember this, brothers, because sometimes someone comes to ask, I forgot, I was making wudu, I forgot I didn't rinse my nose. I was making wudu, I forgot I didn't rinse my mouth, or I forgot I didn't wash my hands in the start. Is my wudu sahih or not? Remember this qa'idah and it'll help you lots, okay? That the arkan, or what's necessary to make your wudu valid, is what is mentioned in this ayah in the Quran. And that is in verse number 6 of Surah Al-Ma'idah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا قُمْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ إِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ. O you who believe, when you prepare for prayer, wash your faces. Okay, pay attention to the order here. Wash your faces and your hands to the elbows. And rub or wipe your heads with water, and wash your feet to the ankles. And there is no evidence at all whatsoever that is authentic that proves that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ever differed in the order of wudu. Nothing. Okay? So doing the wudu in this sequence is also one of the arkan, or things that is necessary. It's a pillar for the wudu to be correct. And this is the opinion of the majority of the ulama, of the scholars. The next part here is washing each part of the wudu, or each segment of the wudu of the body, wash each body part immediately after. We talked about this last in the muwalat. Okay, washing it without a big gap of time between one another. And this is what is apparent from the narration of Uthman radiallahu anhu and the collection of the ahadith that we have in this bab on the description of the wudu of our beloved sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And it shows to us the continuity of washing the limbs without taking a break in between. So it has not been authentically proven from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam that he would take a long break between washing the limbs of the wudu. There is a narration that mentions, like I said last time, Abdullah bin Umar, one time when performing wudu, he left somewhat of a gap between wiping his head and then wiping his feet. Okay, but there is ulama that differ on the authenticity of that hadith. Okay, and the majority of the scholars are upon the view that washing with no time, without a big time gap in between, so back to back or in sequence, is obligatory. Okay. So this is the majority of the ulama. They say that washing each body part back to back without a big gap in between, it is obligatory. Meaning that if you were to leave a large gap of time in between each sequence of the wudu, then it would render the wudu batil or invalid. There is though a small khilaf or a minority khilaf, and that is in the madhab of Al-Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, in which he says that it is not obligatory to do so. Okay? However, as for a short break between each limbs, okay, if there's a short gap of time between them, there is no harm in doing that. Let's say something, you're making wudu, then you dropped something on the floor, you have to pick it up, put it in your pocket or something. There's a small gap of time between each body part, washing each part, then inshallah there is no harm in doing that. And there's no khilaf between the salaf on this, that it nullifies wudu. So it does not nullify the wudu to leave a small gap of time according to ijma' salaf. Okay? And this is mentioned, the ijma' is mentioned by Abu Hamid rahimahullah and Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah. The next segment is rinsing out the mouth and the nose, which is called to al-madmada wal-istinshaq. So al-madmada is rinsing out the mouth, and al-istinshaq is to rinse out the nose or the nostrils. And how to make madmada properly is to put water in the mouth, move it around, and then spit it out. Okay? And how to make istinshaq properly is to sniff the water into the nostrils, into the backmost part, and then to release it by blowing it out. And it's also encouraged to exaggerate in the istinshaq, in clearing the nose, making when rinsing it. Okay, except in one time or in one instance, which is when you are fasting, when you are silent. Why? To prevent water from being swallowed. To prevent water from being swallowed. And the sunnah is to rinse the mouth and sniff the water in the nose with the right hand. And the sunnah is to take water for rinsing the mouth and the nose with one handful and to do that thrice without separating between them. And this is what is confirmed from the hadith that we mentioned prior of Abdullah bin Zayd radiyallahu anhu. So sometimes people they take water, they rinse out their mouth, they spit it out. Then they take water, rinse out their nose, they spit it out. What's the sunnah is to do them both with one kind of action. You cup water with your right hand, you put some into your mouth, and then you put the rest into your nose. And then you would spit out, after moving the water around in your mouth, you spit it out, and then you would blow out the water from your nose. And that is according to the narration of Abdullah bin Zayd, as we just mentioned prior, how he describes the wudu of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that is the action that he did, is that he rinsed his mouth and his nose with one handful of water. And he did that 3 times. And it is also sunnah, which I just kind of gave it away, but the point that I have here, just to recap, it is also sunnah that in that handful that you take water for your mouth for madmada before istinshaq. So you don't inhale, then take some in your mouth. You put some in your mouth, then you intake into your nostrils after that. And like I said, that is from the actions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also agreed upon by the Sahaba wa Tabi'een radiyallahu anhu. Now, what is the hukum on al-madmada wal-istinshaq? Is it a sunnah or is it a wajib? It is sunnah. It is sunnah, okay? There is some khilaf bayn al-ulama, because some of the ulama, they say that al-madmada wal-istinshaq, it actually falls under the ayah فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ. The part of the ayah, the command of Allah to wash your face. They say the mouth and the nose are from the face. Therefore, rinsing the mouth and the nose is part of the wajib of فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ. However, al-qawl al-rajih wallahu a'lam is that rinsing the mouth and sniffing the water into the nose are sunan and they are not wajib. Okay? And it does not invalidate the wudu if they are left out. And this is opinion of the majority of the scholars. It was narrated by Imam Malik, Abu Hanifa, al-Shafi'i, and others. And like previously mentioned, is that ظاهر الآية فاغسلوا وجوهكم, washing the face, ظاهر الآية, it does not include rinsing the mouth and the nose. Okay, and many of the Salaf, they did not make obligatory other than what was mentioned explicitly in the ayah of wudu. So the description on an istinthar. So al-istinthar is after al-istinshaq. And istinshaq is taking the water into the nose, and istinthar is removing it from the nose, expelling the water out of the nose. So al-istinthar, to blow the water out of the nose, is legislated in the wudu, and it is the sunnah, and there's no difference of opinion on that, and that is also sunnah by agreement of the 4 imams. That being said, why do I mention that? Because sometimes people, they kind of make a lazy wudu. When they're rinsing their mouth and their nose, they intake the water, but they don't actually make an effort to blow it out. They kind of just leave it to pour out on its own. However, that is not the sunnah. The sunnah is to actually blow it out, and to do so with the left hand. Okay? So you take in water into your mouth, al-madmada, you move it around, you take the rest of the handful into your nose, al-istinshaq, and then you would spit out the water after moving it around, and then you would blow out the water from the nose and have the residue removed with your left hand. The next part is washing the face. Sorry, how long have we been going for? I don't want to overwhelm. Yeah, check how long have we been going for.
22 minutes.
27? Are you okay if we carry on a little bit longer? Yeah? Alhamdulillah. Okay. So washing the face. The hukm on washing the face, as we just mentioned, is that it is wajib. Okay? If it is left out, then the wudu is batil. Now, what exactly is the face? What determines the borders of the face? According to what the ulama say, that the face is outlined by the hairline to the chin, down to the chin, and then from one ear to the other. Okay? So this is what is wajib this is what is by obligation has to be washed. The whole face from these borders. Okay? How about if somebody has a shaved head or is bald? Then you wash to where the hairline is. If somebody's bald, they don't have a hairline, then it's to where the average person's hairline is. Okay? Or if a person has a very receding hairline, they don't consider up to here to be part of their head, their face, of course. It would be to where the average or normal hairline would be. Okay? And then down to the chin bone, and then from the ear to ear. Sometimes people, they make the mistake, they don't pay attention to washing the space between their beard or their sideburn and their ear. Okay? That whole area has to be washed. And it is wajib to do so. If you do not wash it completely, then you have a khalal in the wajib and your wudu is invalid. One important point here, and actually I notice it quite a bit amongst brothers once we're making wudu in the station, is that lots of people, they make wudu, when they're making wudu, they use only one hand to wash their face. I'm not sure if it's something that was like taught in specific or it's done purposely or not. Allah, it seems that it is. But the sunnah is to wash the face with both hands. The sunnah is to wash the face using both of your hands and not using one hand, as was the action of the Prophet ﷺ, as mentioned in the hadith narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari, the hadith of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, which Ata bin Yasar narrates that Ibn Abbas performed wudu and he washed his face in the following way. He ladled out a handful of water, okay, and rinsed his mouth and washed his nose with it by putting water in it and then blowing it out. He then took another handful of water and did like this, gesturing, joining both hands together, and washed his face. And like I said, that hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari. For the one who has a beard, he should use the water left after washing his face to run through the beard, okay? Now what's the hukum? Actually, we'll leave that just for a moment here. Question here. in the wudu, does somebody have to wash their eyeballs while making wudu? Do you have to have water, get water into the eye? No. Okay, one should not put extra water into the eyes while washing them in the wudu. That's not from the sunnah. Okay, even though Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu, it's narrated that he actually used to do that, radiallahu anhu. And it's also narrated that Abdullah bin Umar, he became blind near the end of his life. Allahu a'lam if there's a correlation between the two. But it is not from the sunnah, from what we have in the authentic hadith describing Rasulullah's wudu, that he would put water directly into his eyes like that, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Perhaps, Allahu A'lam, perhaps Abdullah bin Umar wanted to attain the virtue, because we know that when making wudu washes away the sins that are earned by the limbs. So perhaps Abdullah bin Umar wanted to get the virtue of washing away the sins that are earned by the eyes, Allahu A'lam. But nevertheless, it is not from the wudu, from the sunnah of Rasulullah in the wudu, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The next mas'ala here is the difference in ruling for washing the beard, whether it's thick or thin. Okay, so if somebody has a thin beard, okay, this is obviously applicable to men. If somebody has a thin beard, which the skin can be seen, if you're looking at the person, you can see their skin that lies underneath the beard, then both the surface and the inner must be washed. If it's very sparse, the beard is very khafif, it's very light, so there's not that much hair on the face, and it shows the skin is very visible, then it is wajib to wash the skin that is there, that is visible as well. Okay? However, if the person has a very plentiful beard, it's very thick, the beard, then what's wajib is to wash the outer surface of the beard. Okay? Up until the borders of the face. So if somebody has a beard down to, mashallah, their chest, okay, it's not wajib to wash their face down to here, because this is now like their belly button, it's not their face anymore. Okay? So if somebody has a thick beard, what's wajib upon them once again is to wash the surface of the thick beard along the borders of the face. It is not obligatory, there's khilaf bin al-ulama, but it is not obligatory to wash the inner part of the beard, the inner layers of it, or the skin beneath it, if the beard is thick. Okay? However, it is prescribed, it is a sunnah to run fingers through the beard, to run the wet fingers through the beard in wudu. That is from the perfection of the wudu. The next step is washing the arms. So we have in the ayah, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا كُنْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions to wash أَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ, and that means to wash your hands to your elbows. So what is the actual borders or the limits of what's wajib, what needs to be washed? So فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ. Washing the hands entails from the fingertip up until the top of the elbow. So the elbow is included in what needs to be washed. Okay, and this is according to the most correct opinion. Like I said, I'm not going to dwell in go into depth into every opinion and every mas'ala. I'm going to just speed up the gear, inshallah. But we will take what is very beneficial for us to know. So what's included in this mandatory washing of the arms, of the hands, is from the fingertips up until the top of the elbows. So the top of the elbows all included. And why I mention this is that many times you see people, because they already washed their hands 3 times in the beginning of the wudu, which is only from the fingertips to the wrist, they think that that part is already washed. So after washing the face, they do only from the wrist to the elbows. This is incorrect according to the most correct opinion. What is correct is to wash again the hands from the fingertips up until the top of the elbow. Actually, Shaykh Abdul Aziz Tarifi, Faraj Allahu An, he makes mention that there's actually no khilaf about these borders, and it is from and there's no khilaf regarding whether it's from the obligatory acts or not. And he says that it is from the 4 obligatory acts which is agreed upon. There's no khilaf in it. Wallahu a'lam. And also in this regard, what's the sunnah, or what's wajib to do rather, what's the wajib is to wash up until the top of the elbow. What I mean by that is not going any further than that, okay? So it's not legislated to wash up until the bicep or the shoulder. We do have a hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he used to do so. He used to go exaggerate in his wudu, and we know that he did that to get the virtue of the wudu, as we have in the hadith, that Yawm al-Qiyamah, the parts of the wudu, or the limbs that are washed in the wudu, they will be shining, or they will be standing out on the Day of Judgment. So he wanted to, when we have Rasulullah, he tells us sallallahu alayhi wa I forget the nas of the hadith, astaghfirullah, but it's encouraged to make or perfect the wudu. So Abu Hurairah's interpretation of that is to exaggerate and to wash further up past the elbow. However, this is not from the sunnah, as Rasulullah never did that, and it's never been narrated that he did that. And that's just the ijtihad of Abu Hurairah, like we mentioned previously, as the ijtihad of Abdullah bin Umar, even though those two things are actually not legislated to do. Wallahu a'lam. The next part is, or the next thing in this regard as well, is when washing the hands and the arms, it is sunnah to run your fingers, or running water between the fingers during that part of wudu. Okay? And we have a hadith that's narrated from Asim bin Laqid, who narrated from his father that he said, I said, Ya Rasulullah, inform me about the wudu. Then he said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, to perform wudu well, and go between the fingers and perform istinshaq extensively except when fasting. قال سمعت عاصم بن لقيد بن صبرة عن أبيه قال قلت يا رسول الله أخبرني عن الوضوء قال أسبغ الوضوء وخلل بين الأصابع وبالغ في الاستنشاق إلا أن تكون صائما. So he said, inform me about the wudu. He said, perform it well. This is the hadith I was referring to. And to go between the fingers, to make khalal between the fingers, and to make istinshaq, take the water to the nose extensively except while fasting. And running water through the fingers is done by entering water between the fingers and using your fingers to wash them. Okay? Also in this regard is, if you have some jewelry on your hand, you have a ring, or you have a watch, or a bracelet, if a woman's wearing a bracelet or something like that, then if these pieces of jewelry prevent water from reaching the skin beneath them, they must be removed prior to making wudu, of course. So if the ring is so tight that water will not reach the skin beneath it, you must remove that ring or that watch or that bracelet, etc. before making wudu, so water can reach the entire surface area of the skin. However, if you have a very loosely fitting ring and it can move around and water can easily go beneath it, or the bracelet a woman is wearing is very loose, or it's not necessarily have to be very loose, but it can move around a decent amount, so all the surface area beneath it can be washed, then there's no need to remove it prior to wudu. And inshallah, I think I don't want to go too much and overwhelm you guys. So inshallah ta'ala, we'll leave off with this. Next week we'll begin with the next segment, which is beginning from wiping the head and the ahkam to do with that. And then after that we will go into what actually nullifies, we still have to do the major purification. So this is, wudu is referred to as minor purification because it purifies from minor impurity. And the major purification is al-ghusl, and that purifies from major impurity. We will take that, and then we'll take the nawaqid al-tahara as well afterwards. If anybody has any questions, you can feel free to ask, inshallah. Other than that, jazakumullahu khairan for your attentive listening. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.